After the divorce, I spent 80 million on the most expensive woman in our circle. You get what you pay for. She delivered perfectly on everything else, with tricks I'd never even dreamed of. Photos of me, tangled with that mysterious woman, went viral among New York's elite overnight. The comment sections blew up. Isn't that Chloe Sterling's husband, the CEO of Sterling Corp? My best friend burst in. Are you insane? Aren't you afraid Chloe Sterling will destroy you? I was leaning against the sofa, straightening my clothes, completely unconcerned. Why should I be? We're divorced. Besides, she was the one who crossed the line first. My friend froze for a second, thinking he'd misheard. What did you just say? Before the words were out, the door was kicked open. Chloe Sterling stood in the doorway, her voice trembling. Ethan Vance, are you done playing games? I looked at her furious face and just found it funny, continuing my defiant act. That year, I had carefully chosen and married a woman who was remarkably emotionally stable. My friends all laughed at me, the young heir of the Vance family, always flanked by 8 bodyguards, falling for a woman who barely spoke a word. I just gave a disdainful smirk. A woman doesn't need to talk, she just needs to perform. But over time, her silent treatment started to drive me mad. I'd send her a voice message in the middle of the night, burning up with a 104-degree fever, and get no reply. I was nearly killed in a shootout on some street abroad, and she wouldn't even pick up my call. Then came the car accident. Our daughter missed the golden hour for treatment because there was no guardian to sign the consent forms. The moment I was off the operating table, I stormed into Chloe's office with a hammer and smashed her phone into a million pieces. If you can't read messages or answer calls, what's the point of having it? Chloe just stood there calmly, watching me lose my mind. A custom notification sound chimed from the shattered phone, only to be cut short by another blow from my hammer. A crack finally appeared in her calm facade. She grabbed her car keys and rushed downstairs. 30 minutes later, her car pulled up to a luxury condo on the Upper East Side. A pale-faced man stumbled out of the building, cradling an unconscious little boy. Chloe rushed over, and after a few frantic words from him, she quickly opened her car door. The boy will be fine, don't worry. I went home in a stupor. My 3-year-old daughter, who had just passed away, came to me in a dream, calling me Daddy. Suddenly, a sharp pain shot through my wrist, and the image of my daughter vanished, replaced by Chloe's ice-cold face. Julian's son is gone, she said. Because you threw a tantrum and smashed my phone, I didn't see his message in time to arrange for help. I let out a laugh. Good. Why should my child be dead while yours gets to live? Chloe stared at me, her expression turning savage. After a long pause, she started dragging me off the bed with all her strength. You killed his precious son. Go kneel before him and beg for forgiveness. My heart was so numb I couldn't feel the pain anymore. I screamed, Chloe, I'm talking about my child. Our child is gone. She didn't even hear me. Turned out that even when we were face to face, her world was closed to me. With me, it was always read, never reply. I grabbed the fruit knife from the nightstand and plunged it toward her heart. I hated her. I wanted her dead. But Chloe didn't die. It was just a minor wound. I visited her in the hospital with my lawyer. She was in the middle of a video conference with a client and didn't even spare me a glance. When she was working, nothing could disturb her. Suddenly, a custom notification sound went off on the phone by her bed. Chloe picked it up, glanced at the screen, and immediately paused her meeting to type out a long reply. I caught a glimpse of the name on the screen, Julian. My heart went cold and hollow. So Chloe was capable of replying instantly, even willing to interrupt an important international meeting for it. They messaged back and forth for a full 10 minutes before the conference resumed. An hour later, it finally ended, and I could speak. Let's get a divorce, I said. You're the one at fault, so I want a larger share of the assets as compensation. Chloe looked up, a flicker of surprise in her cold eyes. Julian's child isn't mine. I've never been physically involved with him, and I never will be. Her tone shifted. But I will do everything I can to help him, so you'd better not try anything. That guarded look felt like a knife in my chest. How long has this been going on? Why? A year, Chloe said, ignoring my second question. She pulled a photo of Julian Cole from her wallet and handed it to me before signing the divorce agreement without another glance. I hope I'll actually see you at the courthouse a month from now. The sarcasm in her voice was thick. Chloe didn't believe I'd actually go through with it. After all, I had endured 5 years of a marriage where I could send 10,000 messages and get 0 replies. But this time, I was done. As I turned to leave, Chloe's voice, sharp with a frown, stopped me. That estate in the Hamptons you had your eye on, I've signed it over to Julian. The fresh air out there will be good for his recovery. I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. I told you that house was the first gift I was going to give our daughter, even if she's gone now. Silence. I glanced back. Chloe was already looking down at her phone, typing, her attention completely elsewhere. I walked out of that hospital room quickly, as if putting distance between us could help me escape the failure of our marriage. Once in my car, I pulled out the photo again, my fingers trembling. The resemblance was uncanny. Julian Cole looked just like Chloe's deceased first love, the man she had actually wanted to marry. 5 years ago, the Sterling family's company was on the verge of collapse. Only the Vance family offered a lifeline, on the condition of a marriage alliance to solidify our ties. My father had long known I was in love with Chloe, so he was eager to make it happen. Our families met immediately. I looked straight at Chloe, my eyes full of affection. But when she spoke, she said she wanted to marry the Vance family's stepson, my stepmother's son, Liam Hayes. That's when I found out they were in love. There's a difference between your own blood and a stepson. My father wasn't about to risk our fortune to bail out the Sterlings for him. He immediately withdrew the offer and tried to talk me out of it. A good marriage is built on mutual affection. Ethan, this will only bring you pain. I was ready to give up, but then Chloe contacted me privately. Wanting to save her family's company, she told me she was willing to marry me. All it took was one dinner alone with her, and I was completely lost, forgetting everything my father had said. I was confident that her change of heart meant she was starting to have feelings for me. I was handsome, charming. It was only a matter of time before she fell completely in love. With my father's backing, our wedding was magnificent. But the celebration hadn't even ended when the news arrived. Liam Hayes had killed himself. The perfect day shattered. My only memories of that day are the sight of Chloe's back as she fled the reception hall, my stepmother's hysterical sobbing, the endless whispers, and the look of pity in my father's eyes. Our honeymoon was cancelled. Everything was a mess. For the first 6 months, Chloe just ignored my messages, claiming she preferred phone calls. Then, after 6 months, once the Sterling Corporation was back on its feet and more powerful than ever, she stopped answering my calls, too. She was a black hole. I poured all my emotions, my joys and sorrows, into her, and got nothing back, not even an echo. When I finally broke down and demanded to know why, Chloe showed me her iMessage history from our wedding day. Liam had sent her a message right before he did it, but I had been pulling her around the room, making toasts with the guests. She missed her chance to save him. She hated herself for it, and she hated me. Now, she'd found a replacement who was a near-perfect lookalike to pour her affection into, treating him 100 times better than she ever treated me. Snapping out of my reverie, I crumpled the photo and threw it away. I looked at myself in the rearview mirror. My eyes were dead, my face was gray, my hair was a mess. I looked like a lunatic. For 5 years, the less she replied, the more I messaged, obsessed with forcing just one response out of her. But all I ever did was drive myself to break down again and again, only to pull myself back together, alone. I took out my phone and dialed a number I hadn't called in 5 years. Is your offer from 5 years ago still on the table? Back when I was getting married, a certain woman tried 3 times to talk me out of it. I was talking about love. She was talking about what we could do in bed. Chloe Sterling is too rigid, she'd said. Trust me, she'll be just as boring in bed. What you need is a fire. I had laughed. And who's the fire? You. She just raised an eyebrow. Darling, I bet you two won't last 5 years. If I win that bet, you have to give me a call first. The familiar voice on the other end of the line snapped me back to the present. I'm still single, so of course the offer stands. I'll be divorced in a month, I said. I'm not looking for love. I just need a woman to help me blow off some steam. A sultry laugh came from her end. All right, baby. I'll play with you. After hanging up, I went home to pull myself together and prepare for my daughter's funeral. I just wanted to grieve quietly with my father. He adored his granddaughter. On most days, it was either me or him looking after her. The next day, when my father saw I had come alone, his face darkened. She couldn't make it? Her own daughter is gone, and she can't even spare a single hour. I forced a casual smile. Dad, we're getting divorced. I was the one who asked for it. She never wanted a child, and she never warmed up to her after she was born. She was my daughter, really. It doesn't matter if Chloe is here or not. My father stared at me for a long moment, blinking back tears. Good, he finally said. It's for the best. He placed my daughter's picture next to a portrait of my late mother. We both said a quiet prayer and then went to the kitchen to make the simple, home-cooked meals that both my daughter and her grandmother had loved. We had just set the table when Mr. and Mrs. Sterling stormed in. Without a word, Mr. Sterling slapped me hard across the face. Vance, is this the son you raised? He stabs my daughter and doesn't even bother to look after her in the hospital. What kind of husband is that? I snapped out of it, stepped in front of my enraged father, and slapped Mr. Sterling right back. Then I grabbed his phone and called Chloe. She picked up instantly, of course. I sneered into the phone. "Your parents are here, throwing their weight around. Get over here and get them. Today is the anniversary of my mother's death and my daughter's." Chloe cut me off, her voice as cool as ever. "I can't leave the hospital yet." In the background, I could hear Julian's fawning voice. "Chloe, which of these couches do you think would look best in the estate you gave me?" I gripped the phone, about to explode, when I heard Chloe say, "You have a bad back. You can't bend over." "I'll do it." Then the line went dead. Mrs. Sterling scoffed. "You hit her father and you expect her to take your side? In your dreams. You haven't won an ounce of her affection in 5 years." With that, she arrogantly flipped the entire table, sending the food we had prepared in memory of my mother and daughter crashing to the floor. Shards of porcelain knocked over their portraits, shattering the glass. I held back my father, who was shaking with rage, and looked at the woman I had respectfully called my mother-in-law for 5 years. "I put up with you because I cared about Chloe. Now, I don't give a damn about her, and I certainly don't give a damn about you." With that, I took 2 of my bodyguards and drove straight to the Sterling's home. They made sure no one interfered while I personally took a baseball bat and started in the living room, not stopping until I reached Mrs. Sterling's prized walk-in closet. As Mrs. Sterling shrieked over her ruined jewelry, Chloe strode in and grabbed my arm. "Haven't you had enough?" I looked up at her, panting, and smiled. "Made time for me, have you?" That was fast. Less than 15 minutes. I shoved her away, dropped the bat, and headed for the door. A man was hovering by the door. When he saw me, he quickly spoke up. "I'm so sorry. I held Chloe up with something important. She didn't mean to ignore you." I ignored Julian's whole innocent act. As I brushed past him, he stumbled backward, apologizing profusely, before collapsing to the floor. "My back!" he cried out. Chloe rushed to help him, bumping into me lightly as she passed. Normally, it wouldn't have been enough to knock me off balance, but the severe internal injuries from my accident suddenly seized up. The pain was blinding, and my vision went black as I collapsed to my knees. Hearing me hit the floor, Chloe frowned. "What is this? Are you trying to frame Julian? Playing the victim now?" Mrs. Sterling snorted with laughter. I wanted to laugh too. How had I, the cherished son of the Vance family, allowed marriage to break me down into this pathetic state? "Julian has such a gentle nature," Mrs. Sterling mused. "He's a much better fit for Chloe." I nodded, gasping for breath. "You're right. A family of ungrateful leeches who use the Vances to get back on their feet deserves a son-in-law like him. Some masseur from a back-alley spa you can buy for a night." Chloe took 2 steps forward, her voice sharp. "Shut your mouth." As she spoke, Julian stumbled forward, driving his elbow hard into my side. I swayed, stumbling back a few steps. For the first time, Chloe completely lost her composure. It was a rare sight, but a shame it was all for some cheap gigolo. I slowly looked up, cold sweat stinging my eyes and blurring Chloe's face. She looked nothing like the woman I had fallen in love with. Maybe we were both unrecognizable now. Chloe said coolly, "Pull yourself together. I married Ethan Vance, not a lunatic." I tilted my head and smiled. "Chloe, why didn't you just die?" I lunged, a box cutter I'd palmed aimed right at her. Stabbed for a second time, Chloe seemed to be in shock. Even as her parents scrambled to pull me off her, she just stared into my eyes and whispered, "You really want me dead, don't you?" My eyes were bloodshot, but before I could speak, Mrs. Sterling screamed, "He's bleeding!" Everyone looked where she was pointing. A large crimson stain was spreading across my shirt, darkest over my ribs. Ignoring her own wound, Chloe shot up and grabbed me, her voice laced with a panic I'd never heard before. "Ethan, what's wrong? Someone get the car." My vision was blurring, but I clung to the hallway railing for dear life, my voice barely a whisper. "I want my bodyguards to take me to the hospital." Chloe frantically tried to pry my fingers from the railing. "I'll take you. You're going to be okay." But she couldn't break my grip. I let out a desperate cry. "I don't trust you. You've never cared about me. Bodyguards, help me." Only when I felt a bodyguard's hand in mine did I finally let myself pass out. Chloe ran alongside us all the way to the car, her hands cradling my head, trembling. She was used to my anger, to our constant fighting. She had never seen me this fragile. I was soaked in sweat and blood, the strong man she knew reduced to something brittle that felt like it could break at any moment. Chloe pressed her cheek against my cold one, murmuring, "You'll be okay," over and over, as if trying to convince both of us. When I woke up, it was dark. My bodyguard rushed to my side. "Mr. Vance, how are you feeling? Should I get the doctor?" It was just the 2 of us in the room. My voice was quiet. "Where's Chloe?" Julian Cole was admitted. Miss Sterling went to his room next door about an hour ago. He paused. Your father called. I told him you were out with friends. Good work. I grabbed my phone, found an old video I kept for occasions like this, and sent my father a clip of me eating fries at a bar to put his mind at ease. I closed the app and saw a new friend request on Instagram. The moment I accepted, Julian sent me a flood of pictures. The day I lost my son, Chloe stayed by my bedside all night. She fell asleep right there. I called her late one night, told her how much I missed my boy, and she came right over to comfort me, still in her own hospital gown. Just now, I mentioned my back hurt, and she gave me a massage and peeled an apple for me. Mr. Vance, did you know your wife is an expert at peeling fruit? I stared at the photo of a single, unbroken apple peel, perfectly thin and even, a testament to her skill. No, I thought to myself, I had no idea. Mr. Vance, you can look down on me all you want. All that matters is that Chloe values me. It was pretty pathetic watching you nearly bleed to death, so I'll be generous and send her over to check on you. A minute later, Chloe walked in. She looked at me, her cool eyes holding an expression I couldn't decipher. Just then, my doctor came in for his rounds. Chloe asked him, why did he lose so much blood? The doctor shot her a surprised look, about to explain that my injuries from the car accident hadn't healed properly, but I cut him off. I know my own body. You don't need to ask. When Chloe got back from a business trip, she handed me a gift. I've cleared my schedule for the next 3 days to spend with you and our daughter. Where would you like to go? After a moment, I said, let's drive out to the coast. Our daughter and I both love the beach. It seemed like a way to give this god-awful marriage a decent ending. I opened the box and took out a pair of designer cufflinks. The color wasn't my style at all, but I put them on anyway to be polite. Chloe drove the sports coupe I'd requested. A few miles down the road, she finally noticed the empty back seat. Isn't our daughter coming? I just grunted sarcastically. Chloe didn't press it. Halfway through the drive, her custom notification went off. A text from Julian. Chloe, I think my back is getting worse. She immediately called him and changed the destination in her GPS. She had his location tracked on her phone. When we picked him up, Chloe helped him into the car. I happened to glance over and froze. Fastened to Julian's cuffs was the same pair of cufflinks, only in a much nicer color scheme. The one I would have chosen. I enunciated every word. Chloe, who picked out my cufflinks? Julian spoke up softly. Mr. Vance, don't you like yours? There were only 2 pairs left. I assumed since you're older, you'd prefer the more traditional color, so I chose this more modern one for myself. He put on an apologetic face. We can trade if you want. I ignored him, my eyes fixed on Chloe. You gave me someone else's leftovers? What am I, Ethan Vance, your personal garbage disposal? I ripped the cufflinks off and threw them out the window. Julian acted like he was too frightened to speak. Chloe just patted his shoulder reassuringly and buckled his seatbelt for him. Then she got back in the driver's seat and said flatly, it's just a color, Ethan. You make a big deal out of everything. No wonder you're so miserable. After a long silence, I gave a bitter laugh. So you do notice I'm unhappy. You notice, but you've never once cared. We detoured to a clinic. By the time Julian came out with a pain patch on his back, the entire morning was gone. My planned trip hadn't even begun. Chloe turned to me. Let's get some lunch. Julian's hungry, and I'm sure you are too. Then she looked at Julian in the back. What are you in the mood for? Thai or maybe some barbecue? Julian smiled. Chloe, how did you remember those are my 2 favorites? You have a great memory. Chloe gave a small smile. It's easy to remember things when you care. Her smile was a knife twisting in my gut. Julian continued, do you remember what I like to drink? Fresh squeezed orange juice. My favorite fruit? Durian. My favorite kind of ribs? Barbecue. And how does Mr. Vance like his? Chloe, who had been answering so smoothly, froze. I said coldly, if you two want to flirt, get a room. Don't do it in my car and make me sick. Chloe frowned. Is that filthy stuff all you ever think about? Julian is like a brother to me. Julian looked mortified. Mr. Vance, I'm sorry if I gave you the wrong impression. I'll be quiet now. Chloe, you can just pull over and let me out. I'm not really that hungry. Chloe shot me a disapproving look, then made a decision. It's lunchtime. We're all eating together. I crossed my arms. Fine. I want French. Chloe didn't say a word. She drove to the French restaurant but didn't get out of the car. Julian doesn't like French food, and with his back, he needs someone to help him. I'll take him for barbecue, then I'll come back and get you. Before I could respond, she drove off. The next day, I was walking along the beach and ran right into Julian. Chloe was with him, holding bags of food and dabbing at the corner of his mouth with a napkin. When she saw me, she froze. When did you get here? Why didn't you text? Julian and I looked all over for you yesterday. It was exhausting for him with his bad back. I turned without a word and started walking toward the water, just to get away from them. Julian jogged to catch up, his voice low and smug. You're really pathetic, Mr. Vance. No matter how much time you spend with Chloe, her heart will always belong to me. I laughed. To you? You've been following her around for this long, and you still haven't figured out you're just a replacement. Watching the color drain from his face wasn't as satisfying as I'd hoped. I was kicking at the water when suddenly, a strong force yanked me forward. My feet found nothing but open water. I was over an underwater drop-off, a dark, bottomless chasm. You know, Mr. Vance, I really hate that arrogant look of yours, Julian said, his voice chillingly calm. Chloe mentioned you're not much of a swimmer. Maybe this will teach you a lesson. He let go and swam away with ease. The water over the drop-off was freezing. I'm a terrible swimmer to begin with, and I panicked. I swallowed water, flailing toward the shore, but a riptide was pulling me further out. I heard a panicked shout nearby. The riptide had caught Julian too, but he was a much stronger swimmer and was managing to stay afloat. Through the churning waves, I saw Chloe. She was swimming toward us like her life depended on it, fast and determined. I instinctively grabbed her arm, trying to get my head above water for a single breath, but she violently shook me off. I plunged back under before I could get any air, and the feeling of suffocation was immediate and overwhelming. This time, I had no strength left to fight. I could only watch as Chloe, using all her might, expertly swam parallel to the shore, pulling Julian with her and escaping the current. Darkness closed in as I sank. Mr. Vance, how are you feeling? I coughed up a lungful of seawater and opened my eyes. I was on the beach with two of my soaked bodyguards next to me. I gripped one of their hands tightly, staring up at the vast blue sky until my eyes burned and a single tear escaped. Chloe pushed through the crowd that had gathered. Seeing that I was alive, she let out a breath of relief. Just now I cut her off, not wanting to hear it, not wanting to even look at her. Stay away from me. Our waiting period is over. Be at the courthouse tomorrow at 10. We're signing the papers. Don't be late. The next day, Chloe was there as promised. She signed her name without a moment's hesitation, then stood and looked down at me. If you think this is some kind of power play to control me, you're mistaken. Once this is final, there's no going back. It's up to you whether you sign or not. With that, she turned and walked out. Calmly, I picked up the pen and signed my name. When I walked out with the divorce decree, a sports car was waiting at the curb. The woman in the driver's seat blew me a kiss. Your hot-blooded lover is ready and waiting. The living room was piled high with boxes. I led Scarlett Monroe inside. Have the movers take all this to Chloe's parents' house, I said, before heading upstairs. I thought that being with another woman would be a release, a way to vent years of frustration. The truth was, I felt nothing. Scarlett pinned me to the bed, a playful glint in her eye. Honey, you paid a premium for my time. You don't have to get your money's worth on the first night. What you need right now is sleep. And so, on that brand new bed, we just slept. Platonically, Scarlett stayed by my side. That week, Chloe was away on business. When she returned, her driver, unaware that his employer was now divorced, brought her back to the house we had shared. Chloe stood in the driveway for a few minutes before letting herself in with her fingerprint. She noticed the housekeeper looking at her strangely. "Where's Ethan?" she asked coolly. "Is he still sulking?" The housekeeper hesitated, then shook her head. "He's resting, ma'am." Chloe grunted in acknowledgement and, out of habit, went to change her shoes, but they didn't quite fit. When she headed for the stairs after washing her hands, the housekeeper tried to block her path. Finally suspicious, Chloe pushed past her, strode upstairs, and threw open the master bedroom door. There, on what used to be her bed, was a strange woman in a lace nightgown, curled up against my bare chest. A fire ignited deep inside her, erupting into a raging inferno in an instant. Her voice was a volcanic roar. "What the hell are you doing?" Scarlett's eyes fluttered open. An instant later, she smoothly pulled the covers up over my chest, as if Chloe were the one intruding. Chloe's face was a mask of fury as she marched toward the bed. "I'm giving you 5 seconds to get out of my bed." Scarlett simply raised an eyebrow, looking at the former lady of the house with amusement. She glanced down pointedly at my hand resting on her waist. "I don't think so," she said lazily. "My darling here isn't done sleeping." My own voice, thick with sleep, joined in. "Chloe, what are you doing here? Get out." Chloe gritted her teeth. "Who do you think you're talking to? Have you forgotten who you are?" Now fully awake, I sat up against the headboard. "I'm asking you to leave. We're divorced. Who I sleep with is none of your business." Scarlett, noticing my sweatpants had slipped low, reached over and pulled them up slightly. The casual intimacy of the gesture seemed to pour gasoline on Chloe's fire. She narrowed her eyes and sneered, "Show me the divorce decree and then we'll talk." She then strode into the bathroom, grabbed my towel, soaked it, and threw the damp cloth in my face. "Wake up. As for you," she turned to Scarlett, her eyes narrowed. She opened her purse, pulled out a wad of cash, and threw it on the bed. "Get out." Scarlett let out a low whistle, feigning insult. "Ms. Sterling, your ex-husband has exquisite taste. My rates are very high." Chloe's face was cold as stone as she moved to grab her, but I threw something small and red that hit her in the chest before landing on the bed. When she saw the words "Decree of Divorce" on the cover, the fire in her eyes died, choked off in an instant. She stiffly picked it up and stared at the cover for a long time before looking back at me, her mind a complete blank, a wave of dizziness washing over her. She steadied herself. After a long look at me, she snorted, then shot a disdainful glance at Scarlett. "No wonder you were in such a hurry. You already had her lined up. Did you have to chase her down just as pathetically as you chased me?" I said coldly. "That's none of your business, ex-wife." I put heavy emphasis on the last word. Chloe tossed the decree into her purse, her voice regaining its usual composure. "Infidelity before the divorce is finalized. We'll have to renegotiate the asset division." With that, she kicked over the gift she'd brought for me and stormed out. Downstairs, she took a deep breath and asked the housekeeper, "Where are my things?" "Mr. Vance had us pack them and send them to your parents' house." Chloe said nothing, just turned and left, her face a cold mask. Back in her old room at her parents' house, surrounded by boxes, the rage boiled over again. She kicked one of the boxes as hard as she could. The next day, she saw me at a gala. Scarlett was with me, fetching me drinks, dabbing at my lips with a napkin, moving with the easy familiarity of a long-term couple. Every eye in the room was on us, then flicking over to Chloe to gauge her reaction. She met their gazes with a cold stare, then drained her wine glass in one gulp. She cornered me when I went to the men's room. "You just couldn't wait, could you? Bringing that woman to a place like this so soon after our divorce. Do you have no shame?" I slowly dried my hands with a paper towel. "What's it to you? You paraded Julian around everywhere when we were still married, and I never said a word. A private friendship is not the same as this. He's like a brother. She swallowed the word, her eyes full of hatred as she looked at my unconcerned face. "Fine. If you want to humiliate both of us, then don't blame me for what I do next." Within 2 days, the gossip started. Chloe had a new man. She, who never brought a date to professional events, was now showing up everywhere with Julian, doting on him in a way she never had with me, her actual husband. I just laughed, completely unfazed. It became a pattern. Whatever I did with Scarlett, a new, more intimate story about Chloe and Julian would surface immediately. It was like we were in a competition. My friends got together to console me, trashing Chloe's name, but I just smiled through it. It was on the drive home that I glanced at a billboard and my expression froze. It was an ad for a luxury watch and the model was Julian Cole. "Stop the car." My friend was speechless. She must really be in love with that guy. He's a nobody, some masseur, and she's making him the face of her company's watch brand? Isn't she worried about the backlash? "No," I muttered, pointing to a man standing beneath the billboard. "Look, isn't that Liam Hayes?" The car went silent. I threw the door open and ran, grabbing the man's arm. I got home very late that night, looking pale. Scarlett asked, "What happened?" I shook my head, rubbing my temples. "Just tired. I need to sleep." After a shower, I passed out. Scarlett watched me sleep, gently smoothing the worried frown from my brow. The next morning, I was up early and out the door, not returning until noon. While I was eating lunch, Scarlett pulled up a chair beside me and gently toyed with my earlobe. "Baby, what happened last night? You seem a million miles away. Want to talk about it?" I didn't answer. Scarlett raised an eyebrow. "You don't want to?" I poked at my food. "No, it's my secret." She handed me a glass of juice. "I'll be here when you're ready. I just want you to know that I care, and you can trust me." I closed my eyes and leaned against her. "Then give me a head massage." As she worked the tension from my scalp, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered and immediately recognized the voice. It was Julian, and from the cheerful lilt in his tone, he was in a very good mood. "Mr. Vance, long time no see. Get to the point," I said, closing my eyes again to enjoy Scarlett's massage. Julian chuckled. "Chloe is throwing a huge birthday party for me in 2 days. You have to be there, Mr. Vance. I'll send you an invitation." I answered lazily, "Why would I go? Who the hell are you?" I heard Julian take a sharp breath. I could almost picture Chloe sitting next to him as he forced another smile into his voice. "Chloe wants you to be there, too." My voice dropped. And who the hell is she? A woman's voice took over the call. It was Chloe. I recall your father has been trying to acquire a certain parcel of land. It hasn't been going well, has it? I opened my eyes, my composure faltering for only a second. Fine, Chloe. I'll be at your little boy toy's birthday party. In fact, I have a special gift for both of you. On the day of the party, Scarlett had a last-minute work thing and couldn't make it on time. She called to apologize. This is taking longer than I thought. I'll probably only be able to get there in time to pick you up. I laughed. We're just having fun. I don't own you. You don't have to be here. Scarlett's voice was a low chuckle. Well, I haven't gotten what I want yet, have I? I have to keep you interested. She blew a kiss into the phone before hanging up. I put my phone away and turned around, coming face to face with Julian. He covered his mouth in a mock gasp. You and Ms. Monroe have been the talk of the town. I almost thought she was a respectable woman. To think that the great Ethan Vance pays for company to stave off loneliness. I smiled back. You can cover your mouth and pretend to be classy, but you can't hide the cheap desperation in your eyes. It's almost comforting how you never change. With that, I walked right past him and into the ballroom. Chloe was in the middle of a conversation, but her eyes flicked to me, then instinctively searched for someone behind me. She came over, grabbing a glass of wine from a passing waiter and handing it to me. Everyone else brought a date. Where's your woman? I thought she was so devoted to you. The words and the tone were so unlike her, she didn't even seem to notice. I had no interest in her commentary, but I was interested in the wine. I took a sip. This is good. What is it? Chloe swirled her glass, latching onto the topic. I'll find out for you. It's different from your usual, but you like it. I nodded. We chatted for a bit while Julian hovered nearby, holding an empty glass, unable to get a word in. He didn't know the first thing about wine. Luckily, the rest of the guests arrived soon, and the spotlight finally shifted to him. In front of everyone, Chloe presented him with his birthday gift, a set of car keys. Before Julian could even react, the room was buzzing. Isn't that the sports car Ethan Vance has been obsessed with? I saw him reposting about it on Twitter just last week. Chloe Sterling just gave her ex-husband's dream car to another man. She's doing it just to humiliate him. I heard they were divorced. Looks like she's still stuck on what her ex likes. Julian looked at Chloe, who was standing beside him but staring straight at me. All night, her attention had been on me. He had only called to invite me to get under my skin. After I insulted him, Chloe had threatened me to make up for it. He had thought her feelings for him were growing, since she had been so publicly affectionate lately. But now he finally understood. It was all to make me jealous. Hidden from view by the cake table, Julian's hand clenched into a tight fist, but he forced a charming smile. Thank you, Chloe. Chloe just nodded. She was never a woman of many words, but tonight she was especially quiet with him. One by one, guests brought their gifts, piling them high on a table. This was a life Julian could never have imagined, yet he wasn't happy. He had Chloe's money, but he wanted her. He had her, but he wanted her love. Everyone had presented their gift except for me. Chloe walked over. And your gift? She asked. Just as I was about to answer, someone bumped me from behind, splashing wine on my shirt. Chloe handed me a napkin, but seeing the stain spread, she said, "Go to the restroom. I'll have someone bring you a proper stain remover." We left the ballroom together. The stain remover worked on the color, but it left a conspicuous wet patch on my shirt. I frowned. I've already sent someone to buy you a new one. It'll be here in 10 minutes, Chloe said. Seeing my surprised expression, she leaned against the wall. Ethan Vance has always been particular about his clothes, hasn't he? I glanced down at the damp spot and gave a small, humorless smile. At her side, Chloe's hand clenched slightly. She had heard my quiet laugh. Chloe, we never should have gotten married, I said. It's funny. The care and attention I could never get from you when we were married, I'm getting so easily now that we're divorced. Chloe flinched and fell silent. Ethan, I cut her off. Don't worry about the shirt. Scarlett will bring me one when she gets here. At the mention of her name, Chloe frowned, her tone shifting. If you're going to move on, at least find someone on your level. A woman like that is beneath you. And think of the influence on our daughter. Julian cautiously approached, interrupting us. He shot me an angry look. Chloe, Mr. Vance, I invited you here to be civil. You should respect some boundaries instead of pulling Chloe aside for a private chat. I punched him in the face. Chloe immediately checked on Julian. Ethan, what the hell is wrong with you? I went back into the restroom, washed my hands again, and came out smiling at Julian. I've been waiting to pay you back for that. You just had to pick tonight to provoke me. I was going to let you enjoy this a little longer, but you just couldn't help yourself. My phone buzzed. I pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and gave Chloe a wicked smile. I apologize for being so emotional. But look, here comes my apology. A gift for Julian and for you. I know you're both going to love it. Julian watched me walk away, a sense of dread growing in his chest. We reached the entrance to the ballroom and, at my request, we waited. Suddenly, Chloe's breath caught in her throat. She pulled her arm away from Julian and took a few stumbling steps forward. "Liam?" she whispered, her voice full of disbelief. The name sent a jolt through Julian, and his head snapped toward me. I just looked on, a knowing smile on my face. Julian's voice was a low hiss. "Mr. Vance? Who is that?" I turned to him and smiled. "Your birthday present. The one and only Liam Hayes, Chloe's first love. You like it when she gets all emotional, don't you?" Julian's mind went blank. His perfect life was over. The man in the white suit spoke softly, almost timidly. "Mr. Vance said that used to be my name." Chloe fired off a series of rapid-fire questions. "What happened to him? Where did you find him? Why are you only bringing him here now?" I gave a sarcastic laugh. "What's with the interrogation? I brought your first love back from the dead, Chloe. A thank you would be nice. I found him by chance. He said he spent the last 5 years in cartel territory in Mexico and just escaped. The suicide attempt failed, but it gave him amnesia. That's all I know." Chloe turned back to the thin, dazed-looking Liam, her eyes filled with pain. I cut in with a sneer, finishing the sentence she'd been dreaming of for 5 years. "She's your fiancé. Don't worry, she'd give you the moon if you asked for it." "Ethan, stop talking nonsense," Chloe snapped. She faltered for a second, but I just gave her a mocking smile, waved, and walked away. Chloe took an instinctive step after me, but then caught sight of Liam and stopped. She looked him up and down. "Liam, you've suffered so much, but it's all over now. Everything's going to be okay." There was no recognition in Liam's eyes, but he nodded, a deep, trusting sound, as if some part of his soul remembered her. That trust made Chloe's heart ache. "As long as you're alive, that's all that matters. Come on, I'm taking you home." Julian, who had been standing silently in the background, forced a smile. "Chloe, are you just going to leave me here?" "Julian, happy birthday," she said, already walking away. "I have to go." The news that Liam Hayes was alive spread like wildfire. When my friends heard he was back with Chloe, living a life of luxury, they were furious and dragged me out for a drink just to yell at me. "Are you an idiot? Liam Hayes ruined your marriage, and you just hand him back to Chloe so he can live the high life? What did he do to deserve that? He deserves to have his organs harvested. Not this." I stirred my coffee, unfazed. It's amusing watching Julian squirm. My friend slammed his fist on the table. "Just to mess with Julian? Was it worth it? Relax. Just wait. Liam isn't as innocent as he looks. They're going to tear each other apart. And besides," I was cut off by a scream from the hallway. It was Julian's voice. "Liam, you bastard. You hit me." My friend and I exchanged a look and opened the door to our private dining room. Across the hall, the door to another room was open. The floor was littered with broken glass, and Julian was clutching his head, blood streaming through his fingers. Liam stood opposite him, perfectly calm. "You swore at me and you poked me. Why shouldn't I hit you back?" Julian lunged, grabbing Liam by the throat. "I was by Chloe's side for a year. I didn't even give a damn about her husband. Who the hell do you think you are?" Liam struggled, then let out a choked cry. "Julian, let go." A figure blurred past us, prying Julian's fingers from his throat and shoving him violently aside. It was Chloe. She glanced at the broken glass, then gently took Liam's face in her hands, checking him over until she found a tiny cut on his finger. She stroked his hair. "It's okay, don't be scared. Let's get that cleaned up." Julian, sprawled amidst the glass and spilled wine, yelled after her. "Chloe, I'm the one who's bleeding." He smashed a bottle over my head, but Chloe didn't even look back. This all felt very familiar. I closed our door and went back to my seat. My friend spoke slowly. "I thought you said Liam had amnesia and just escaped from some cartel. He seems pretty capable for a guy like that." I took a sip of my coffee. "I'm almost certain he's lying. I'm just waiting for the proof." "Oh, Chloe, the proof of Liam's lies will be my second gift to you. I can't wait to see the look on your face." Julian the gold digger story came to a swift end. Now all anyone in our circle talked about was Chloe and Liam, and inevitably my name, Ethan Vance, was always mentioned alongside theirs. But I had vanished from the social scene ever since Liam reappeared, never once being seen in the same place as either of them. One day, I was driving to meet with a private investigator when a man stepped into the road, blocking my path. He screamed curses at me, throwing a rock at my windshield. "Ethan Vance, get out here. You ruined me. I hope you die a miserable death." It was Julian, dressed in shabby clothes, his face twisted with hatred. I reversed back through my gates and closed them, shutting him out. Through the spiderweb of cracks in my windshield, the man who had once lorded his new status over me looked broken, his glamour gone, reduced to a pathetic creature held together only by hate and greed. I checked the time, growing impatient, and decided to call Chloe. The number that had been unreachable for 5 years of our marriage picked up on the first ring. "What is it?" she asked. I gave a silent, bitter laugh. "Julian is camped outside my gate. This is your mess. You clean it up." "Half an hour," she replied, and true to her word, she was there in 30 minutes. The moment Julian saw her, he rushed forward to embrace her, but 2 men stepped out from behind Chloe and restrained him. I was too far away to hear anything, but I watched as they dragged a struggling Julian away. The replacement is more important than the husband, but the original love is more important than the replacement. The food chain of affection. I got out, took a picture of the damage, and started to text it to her. Then, remembering all the messages she'd ignored, I walked over and showed her the photo on my phone instead. "Julian did this. Wire me the money for the repairs." Chloe nodded, glancing at my suit. "Where are you headed? I can give you a ride." Just then, a sports car screeched to a halt beside us. Scarlett Monroe leaned out, beaming. "Long time no see, Miss Sterling." Then she opened the passenger door. "Darling, get in." I started toward the car. Chloe grabbed my arm. "How long are you going to keep this up?" Her eyes flickered to Scarlett's cleavage, then back to my cold, distant expression, and I saw a flash of pain in her eyes. Chloe let go, her voice calm again. "I'm grateful to you for bringing Liam back. When are you free this week? He and I would like to take you to dinner." She watched me, deliberately emphasizing he and I. My expression didn't change. "I'm free tomorrow." With that, I got in the car and we sped off. Chloe watched us disappear down the road, her hands slowly clenching into fists. At dinner the next day, she was clearly not expecting me to bring Scarlett. As she watched me pour Scarlett's water and peel shrimp for her, Chloe looked like she wanted to flip the table. Every time the urge seemed to overwhelm her, she forced herself to take a sip of water. She barely touched her food, but she finished 3 glasses of water. She started peeling shrimp for Liam, who thanked her shyly, his eyes shining. He leaned in and whispered, "Chloe, can you stay with me tonight? I'm so scared when I'm alone. I keep having nightmares about being beaten and electrocuted. Even with the lights on, all I dream about is blood." The sudden talk of sleeping arrangements made Chloe visibly uncomfortable. Before she could respond, I laughed. "Of course she'll stay with you. You're the center of her universe. She'd do more than just stay the night. She'd marry you in a heartbeat." I looked at Chloe, whose expression had soured. "The man you've always wanted is right here. You must be dying to make it official. So when's the wedding? Or has 5 years of hardship diminished his appeal for you?" Chloe looked at me as if she knew I'd only come to torment her. "You want me to marry Liam?" she asked, dabbing her lips elegantly with her napkin, but her hand trembled, knocking over her water glass. Water spread across the table and dripped onto Liam's pants. Chloe stood, her face hidden in shadow. "Go to the restroom and get cleaned up," she said, her voice tight. I could tell she just wanted to escape, to get away from my damnable, expectant gaze. Liam gently took her hand, his face troubled. "I can't marry anyone," he whispered. He forced a smile. "After what they did to me over there, what woman would want me? I'd just be ruining her life. A woman like Chloe deserves someone so much better." He seemed to gather his courage and looked at me. "So please stop. You're making things difficult for her. She's already done so much for me. I don't want to be a burden." The sight of his pained, forced smile twisted Chloe's heart, and a wave of guilt washed over her. If only she had answered his message 5 years ago. If she hadn't agreed to marry me to save her family, none of this would have happened to him. Liam had saved her life once. Seeing him like this was worse than death. On pure impulse, the words tumbled out. "He's right. 5 years ago, you were the one I wanted to marry." She glanced at me. "Now that you're back, it's only natural that we get married." Tears welled up in Liam's eyes. "Chloe, you don't have to." Chloe sat down and took his hand. "I'm serious. If things had been different 5 years ago, we would have been married all this time." It was the first time they had touched so intimately since his return. I started clapping slowly. "Congratulations." Chloe didn't look at me or say another word. For someone whose dream was supposedly coming true, she showed no joy, no excitement. She looked like someone being swept along by a current, the rudder of her life in someone else's hands. After dinner, back in the car, Scarlett teased me. I've never seen an ex-husband so invested in his ex-wife's love life. I closed my eyes, feeling the breeze. "You wanted to know what happened that night, right? You'll find out at their wedding. I'm taking you." Scarlett laughed. "Sounds like someone's been very naughty." I pushed down the wave of pain and forced a smile. Anyone who hurts me will pay for it. A few days later, Liam Hayes, wearing a custom-made wedding band, paid a visit to my father. He claimed his memory was back. "Mr. Vance," he began, "I came to thank you. I remember now how you kindly allowed my mother to bring me to live here. Without you, a poor kid from the country like me would never have gone to college. I'd be working in a factory." He glanced down at his ring and smiled. "Ever since I came to this house, I tried to be grateful and hardworking. I never wanted to compete with Ethan for anything, especially not for a woman. When you were so insistent on their marriage, I bet you never thought you'd end up destroying 3 lives, did you? Especially your precious sons. And you certainly never imagined that after everything, I'd still be the one ending up with Chloe. I was just arriving for my usual visit with my father when I overheard this from the foyer. I strode into the living room and pointed at Liam. "Get out." Liam just kept smiling as he pulled a gold-embossed invitation from his suit pocket. "Chloe and I would be honored if you and your father would attend our wedding." I took it from him, my face a mask. "Go ahead and smile, Liam. Enjoy your last few days of happiness." After calming my father, I showed up on the wedding day dressed in my finest suit. Chloe and Liam's wedding was an extravagant affair, as if trying to make up for 5 lost years. The guest list was a who's who of the city's elite, but even in that crowd, I stood out. Chloe noticed me the second I walked in. She seemed to be in a daze, her mind flashing back to our wedding. She remembered me in my suit, my face flushed, grinning like an idiot. She remembered the distinct flutter she had felt in her heart. "Chloe," Liam said from beside her. She snapped back to the present, took a deep breath, and turned to step back into the role she had chosen for herself. After the officiant's speech, it was time to exchange the rings. I sat in the audience, feeling the weight of dozens of stares, and applauded with a polite smile on my face. Once the rings were on their fingers, I stood up and walked to the stage. "Liam, Chloe," I said smoothly, "you both hold a very special place in my heart, so I have a gift for you. Please, direct your attention to the screen." Photos appeared on the screen. It was Liam, with his perfectly styled hair and fashionable, comfortable clothes. The background was rural, but the house he was standing in front of was a large, modern home that looked more like a country estate than a farmhouse. Then, a voice recording began to play. "Liam, you're incredible. Hiding out in the country for 5 years. No ID, no credit cards, no cell phone. You didn't leave a single trace. A guy with your patience could succeed at anything." The Vances were so determined to have that marriage, weren't they? Let's see how they feel about it with a dead body between them. "Aren't you worried Chloe might actually fall for Ethan Vance? He's the Vance heir. Women are lining up to marry him. Chloe is sentimental. I saved her life once. After I die, she'll never get over it. She'll just feel more and more guilty about me and grow colder and colder toward Ethan." The moment the recording started, Liam lunged for the power cord, but Chloe held him back. When he started shouting, she clamped a hand over his mouth. The entire ballroom was silent. I turned away from the screen and smiled at the crowd. "And that is my gift." Liam Hayes spent the last 5 years living quite comfortably, completely unharmed. A happy ending, wouldn't you say? Let's have a round of applause. I set down the microphone and began to clap. Liam glared at me with pure murder in his eyes. He finally broke free from Chloe's grasp and screamed, "Ethan Vance is lying. The photos are fake. The recording is a deep fake." Chloe just stared at him, at this man she had never truly known. "Ethan doesn't lie," she said, her voice flat. "So it's true. You faked your death and let me live with that guilt for 5 years. You must have enjoyed that, didn't you? Watching me and Ethan tear each other apart while you were hiding out, laughing." Liam grabbed for her hand, but she repeatedly shoved him away. "Get away from me, Chloe. I did it for you," Liam pleaded. "You wanted to be with me. This was the only way." Chloe gritted her teeth. "I told you then that I had to marry Ethan to save my family. I told you that when I made that choice, I was letting you go, that we were over. Was I not perfectly clear?" "But you love me," he insisted. Chloe's expression was cold. "Not anymore. Maybe I never did. Maybe it was just a crush. If I had truly loved you, I never would have agreed to marry Ethan, no matter how much my family needed the Vance money." She shoved him away with all her strength. Liam stumbled and fell, a pathetic figure in his expensive suit. The glamorous wedding party, meant to witness his triumph, now stood as witnesses to his humiliation. It took all of Chloe's strength to compose herself. She took the microphone. "Thank you all for coming," she said, her voice strained. "I'm sorry, but the wedding is canceled. Please, everyone, you may leave." As the guests filed out, the vast ballroom, set for hundreds, was suddenly empty except for 2 people, me and Scarlett. The food at a 5-star hotel is usually decent. I calmly began to eat, offering my critique to Chloe. Chloe's eyes were hollow with exhaustion. You chose today on purpose, didn't you? You knew all along that he faked his death. I put down my fork, wiped my mouth, and looked up at her. This is the only way I could ever feel a moment's peace. Chloe's lips parted, but no words came out. She looked like she was about to collapse. Leaning on the table for support, she slowly sank into the chair across from me. She had carried this guilt for 5 years, and she had made me pay for it for 5 years. The guilt, the self-loathing, all of it tied to a man's death. It was too much for her to bear, so she directed it all at me. We had tortured each other for 5 years, all for nothing, all based on a lie. What was it all for? The hatred, the pain? How could she ever fix the damage those 5 years had caused? She stared at me, and I knew she could see the same deep pain in my eyes that I saw in hers. Her voice trembled. Are you happy now? Is this what you wanted? At least I did what I came here to do, I said, standing up to leave. As I walked away, she called out my name. Ethan. She didn't know why she did it, only that if she let me walk away then, she would lose me forever. She didn't owe Liam anything. She never had, but she owed me. She had always owed me. I stopped, my fists clenching at my sides. But in the end, I didn't turn around. I didn't say a word. I just kept walking, leaving that beautifully decorated tomb behind me. In the car, I stared out the window in silence. Chloe had asked if I was happy, but destroying Liam today couldn't even begin to make up for the 5 years of hell I'd been through, or for the loss of my daughter. So, was I happy? A single tear fell, disappearing into the fabric of my suit. All I felt was regret, but no matter how much I regretted it, that chapter of my life was over. I could never go back. I was still staring into space when the car pulled up to my building. Scarlett rolled down her window and just watched me. After a long time, I finally snapped out of it and turned to her. I want you. Scarlett leaned across the console and tilted my chin up. Let's see about that, she murmured, then kissed me. I pulled her close, kissing her back with a desperate hunger. Chloe went home and collapsed onto her bed, all the strength draining out of her. She felt like a corpse that was still breathing. She lay there from morning until night. Finally, she sat up and called her lawyer, telling him to take back everything she had ever given Liam Hayes and his mother. Of course, the lawyer replied. Does that include the apartment you bought for his mother 5 years ago? Chloe was silent for a long time. No, she finally said. Let her keep that. She mustered what little energy she had and drove to the apartment she'd bought for them, a sprawling penthouse in a luxury building. After Liam's suicide, my father, blaming himself for bringing him into our lives and ruining my happiness, had divorced his mother the very next day. But Chloe had continued to visit the woman every week, becoming like a daughter to her. Chloe let herself in with her fingerprint. The living room was empty, but she could hear raised voices coming from the master bedroom down the hall. She was about to knock when the words from inside stopped her cold. Faking your death? How could you do that, Liam? You lied to me, your own mother, for 5 years. Do you have any idea what you put Chloe through? She's been living in hell, blaming herself every single day. Enough, Mom. Liam cut her off. You're just scared your gravy train is coming to an end. It's not. I saved Chloe's life once. For that reason alone, she'll never do anything to hurt us. Liam ran a hand over the expensive furniture. I may have lost this battle, but I haven't lost the war. Ethan thinks he's won, but he hasn't. He was the one who saved Chloe all those years ago, but she's always believed it was me. No one will ever know the truth. In the end, I still win. His mother was sobbing, utterly disappointed in her son. Liam yelled at her impatiently, then threw open the door and froze. Chloe, when did you get here? Chloe's head was bowed, her expression unreadable in the dim light. She looked up at the man she had once considered her closest friend, and realized she had never known him at all. She had been kidnapped by a nanny at age 2 and sold to a family who treated her with indifference. She ran away after middle school, falling in with a rough crowd in a small town. It was there she met Liam, another lonely kid left behind by his parents. She started looking out for him, protecting him from bullies, and they formed a bond. Once, during a fight, she was stabbed and beaten so badly she was temporarily blinded. Her friends abandoned her. She was ready to die, but then a boy's voice shouted, "Cops!" scattering her attackers. He got her to a hospital. When her vision returned, the first person she saw was Liam. From that day on, they were inseparable, looking out for each other. After her real family, the Sterlings, found her, she bought him an apartment, where he lived until his mother married my father. Looking back on that time, crawling out of the mud and trying to build a new life, Liam had been her only light. That's why his death had destroyed her with guilt. But even that, her one source of light had been a lie, a calculation. "You lost," Chloe said. With those 2 words, she turned and walked out. She called her lawyer again. "Take everything back. And if you can't, find a way to make him lose it." Chloe drove aimlessly through the night. When she finally came to her senses, she found herself parked outside my house. I had changed the gate code so she couldn't get in. She stared at the house, picturing my face in her mind. She didn't know how long she'd been there when a car horn jolted her back to reality. It was my car. She got out and knocked on my window. It rolled down, revealing the very face she had just been imagining. She gripped the edge of the window, staring at me, unable to speak. It felt like trying to form words would tear her apart from the inside. I said calmly, "Could you please move your car?" She didn't seem to hear me. After a long pause, she finally spoke. "Liam lied to me." I gave a faint, humorless smile. "And? You lied to me. What makes you think you can come to me for comfort?" My question left her speechless. After a moment, she slowly walked back to her car and pulled it aside to let me pass. She watched until my car was out of sight, then drove home and collapsed into bed. Her mind drifted back to those desperate days in that small town, to the fight, to the angry shout that had saved her. My voice, smiling. "Sure, I'll be waiting for you to repay me." The memory shifted. It was my face again, pale and tear-streaked, as I lunged at her with the knife. "Why didn't you just die, Chloe?" Chloe woke with a start, disoriented, unsure if it was a dream, unsure if it was day or night. She called out my name instinctively. "Ethan." As her senses returned, she realized she wasn't in our old house. With a splitting headache, she fumbled for her phone and scrolled through her iMessage contacts until she found my name. The last message was from 3 months ago. I had stopped messaging her 2 weeks before we signed the papers. She'd never paid attention before, always just marking them as read without a glance. Now, she stared at my contact photo for a moment, then opened our chat and scrolled all the way to the top, to the very beginning of my 5-year monologue. I had shared funny articles with her, asked her what she wanted for dinner, where she wanted to go on vacation. I'd asked for her opinion on business matters, on a new suit, on a gift I'd bought for her. In the beginning, my messages were happy, excited. Then came the complaints. The questions about why she never replied, why she was so cold. Then I would make excuses for her, forgive her in my own mind, and the cycle would start again. The happy sharing, the silence, the breakdown, and the lonely recovery. Chloe had to keep stopping to catch her breath, to compose herself. She was only now realizing how many times I had reached out to her in moments of real crisis, of life and death, only to be met with absolute silence. She knew what that kind of desperation felt like. She couldn't imagine what I must have gone through. She had always seen me as the pampered heir, someone untouched by real danger. Chloe read from midnight until dawn, and then all through the day until dusk. Her eyes burned, and her heart felt like a cold, dead weight in her chest. When she reached the end, she typed 2 words and hit send. "I'm sorry." A red notification popped up immediately. Message failed to deliver. At some point, I had blocked her. Chloe collapsed onto her bed for another sleepless night. The next morning, she took a long shower, dressed carefully, and went to a high-end boutique to buy me a gift. Surrounded by men's accessories, she was stumped when the sales clerk asked, "What does your husband like?" She couldn't answer. In the end, she just bought a few things in colors she remembered me wearing, picked up some toys for our daughter, and drove to my house. She waited outside my gate again, catching me as I was leaving. "Many years ago," she said, rushing the words out, "in a small town you saved a teenage girl. That was me." I stared at her, completely blank. It was only after she recounted several more details of the incident that a vague memory started to surface. She told me everything, how Liam had deceived her, why she had felt so indebted to him. She apologized. She tried to get me back. "In 5 years of marriage, I don't think I ever took you out to dinner, just the 2 of us. Are you free for lunch today?" I made a reservation. I shielded my eyes from the sun and shook my head. "We're not married anymore, Chloe. You don't need to buy me lunch. You don't need to make up for anything. Let's just leave things as they are." I didn't take her gifts or accept her invitation. I just left. Chloe stood there in the blazing sun, looking faint. It was then that she noticed the person in my passenger seat. It was Scarlett. Chloe sat in her car for a long time before finally starting the engine. I walked into my father's house with Scarlett. "Dad, I'm here." The old man's eyes narrowed the moment he saw Scarlett. I knew he was sizing her up. The 2 of them launched into a game of chess. It was so boring I went to the kitchen to watch the housekeeper cut fruit. A while later, my father came into the kitchen. "Son," he said conspiratorially, "I approve. She seems like a firecracker, but I can tell she's a loyal person. I even checked your horoscopes. You're a perfect match." I rolled my eyes. Dad, we're not even dating. The only reason she's here is because you heard we had dinner once and insisted on meeting her. There's nothing serious going on. My father sniffed. Well, I like her. She has character. Do what you want. I don't understand you kids these days. Just don't play with her feelings, son. That's not honorable. I know, Dad, I said impatiently. Do I look like the kind of guy who would do that? After dinner, my father took a call. It was about that land deal. He was still sharp as a tack, still passionate about the business. But I knew this particular project had been stalled for a long time. My father glanced at me. All right, see you tonight, he said into the phone. He hung up and turned to me. You're coming with me tonight. This business will be yours one day. It's time you got involved, especially with this project. I nodded. When we arrived that evening, I was shocked to see that the key person helping my father with the deal was Chloe. After some small talk, everyone else left the private room. Then Chloe knelt before my father. For the last 5 years, because of Liam, I caused so much pain and misunderstanding for Ethan. I hurt him deeply, and I hurt you as well. I am sorry. I am so sorry. She explained everything, from beginning to end, without making excuses or playing the victim. My father just sat there, slowly sipping his tea, saying nothing. I started to tell her to get up, but my father shot me a warning look, so I stayed silent, watching Chloe kneel there, perfectly straight, her head bowed. My father called the waiter for more tea. He drank it slowly, cup after cup, even offering me some, acting as if Chloe wasn't even in the room. 5 minutes passed, 10, 20, half an hour. Finally, my father looked at her. Apology accepted. You can get up. Chloe didn't move. She looked at me. I'm asking you, sir, to persuade Ethan to give me a chance to make things right. I can't make decisions for Ethan, my father said. He's a grown man. I said quietly, it's over between us, Chloe. You don't have to do this. She remained kneeling. Another half an hour passed before my father finally stood. Get up, he said. What happened was a tragedy, but the time for you and Ethan has passed. Chloe's face was pale. Defeated, she used a chair to slowly pull herself to her feet. Then let me drive you home. Let me do this one last thing for you. She dropped my father off first, then me. By the time we reached my house, I had fallen asleep in the car. Chloe looked at my sleeping face, her hand hovering, wanting to touch me but pulling back at the last second. She thought about the last 5 years. There had been good moments, but they were all tainted, rendered meaningless by the shadow of a death that wasn't even real. Now all that was left was regret. For a long time after that night, I didn't see Chloe again. We were like two lines that had intersected. Once we passed that point, we were destined to move further and further apart, until my father was hospitalized. His kidneys were failing. He needed a transplant. When the doctor told me, a grown man, broke down and cried right there in his office. I couldn't bear to lose another person I loved. Scarlett was there for me, comforting me, helping me with the paperwork, with getting him on the transplant list. The wait for a match could be years. I was incredibly lucky. A week later, the doctor called. They had a match. The surgery could happen immediately. The surgery was a success. When they wheeled my father out of the OR, I cried again, this time with relief. I spent the next week living at the hospital by his side. One morning, as I was helping my father with his breakfast, the door to his room was thrown open, slamming against the wall. Mrs. Sterling stormed in, screaming at me. You're a curse. First you nearly get my daughter killed, and now you've taken her kidney. She shoved me, sending me stumbling backward. I froze, unable to process her words. Chloe had donated the kidney? Stop pretending you didn't know, Mrs. Sterling sobbed. I got Chloe's room number from her and went to see her. As I approached her room, I could hear her and her mother arguing. Why would you do that? Why would you give a kidney to his father? You have no regard for your own health. Your father and I have been worried sick. Chloe's voice was flat. When I was in the ER after my accident, you and Dad were on vacation with my brother. Ethan was the one who took care of me. You tell me why. I'm your mother. I would never hurt you, Mrs. Sterling shouted. Chloe's voice was cold. Have you ever really cared about me? Please leave. I need some quiet. I waited until her mother had left before entering the room. What is it now? Chloe snapped, then fell silent when she saw it was me. She looked embarrassed. Did my mother cause a scene? I'm sorry. I never wanted you to find out. I leaned against the doorframe, looking at her in the hospital bed. She had lost weight. I had always had good taste. Chloe wasn't like the others. It was just like my father said. Bad timing. My eyes started to burn. It would be a lie to say you shouldn't have done this, I said slowly. You saved my father's life. Thank you. Chloe's voice was soft. Then, while I'm here, just bring our daughter to visit me every day. Talk to me for half an hour. I sniffled and nodded. Okay. From that day on, I visited her in her hospital room for an hour every day. I told her our daughter was visiting her aunt overseas. Chloe didn't ask any more questions. We talked about everything. The food we used to eat, the places we'd been, the books we'd read. It was as if 5 years of silence were finally pouring out of us. I knew she was trying to steer us toward the good memories, but the bad ones were always lurking just beneath the surface. They were so numerous that any small thing could bring them rushing back. I did my best to play along, and Chloe was careful to steer the conversation away from dangerous territory. We were both walking on eggshells. Being younger and stronger than my father, she was discharged first. I sent her a carefully chosen gift. When my father was discharged, I threw a party for him with our closest friends and family. I didn't invite Chloe, but she came anyway, bringing an expensive, thoughtful gift. I was polite to her, but that's all. To me, she was just another guest. And the woman who was on the inside, Chloe's eyes fell on Scarlett, who was by my side, greeting guests. Even she could see how much a part of my life Scarlett had become. Chloe looked around my father's house, a place I had begged her to visit for years, a place she had always refused to come. Now, she looked at it with a sense of longing. She wanted to try one more time. Her chance came a few days later. She got a frantic call from my best friend. "It's Liam and Julian. They've got Ethan. This is your fault, Chloe. You brought these psychos into our lives. You have to do something. Ethan's drunk. He's in real danger." She rushed to the bar where I'd been, had her people pull the security footage, and sent a dozen bodyguards out to search for me. Half an hour later, she found me at the police station. My bodyguards had been with me. They had dealt with Liam and Julian easily. I had never needed her help. I was drunk and leaning back in a chair, trying to clear my head. I heard my friend's voice and opened my eyes. It took me a moment to focus on Chloe, standing a few feet away. She walked over. "I'll take you home." I closed my eyes again, my voice slurring. "Don't have to," called Scarlett. "She's coming." Chloe pressed her lips together and reached for me. My friend stepped in her way. "What are you doing, Chloe?" "He's waiting for Scarlett. Leave him alone. That woman isn't good enough for him," Chloe said coldly. My friend laughed in her face. "And you are? Where were you when Ethan was in that car crash? Where were you when he had to identify our daughter's body? Don't think you can play the hero now just because you made a few phone calls." He kept yelling, but Chloe didn't hear another word. His words echoed in her mind. Car crash. Identify our daughter's body. She stood frozen for a long time before she could finally force the words out. Identify her body? What happened to my daughter? "Ask him yourself," my friend said, his face grim. He saw Scarlett's car pull up and waved her over. "Over here." Scarlett hurried over and helped my friend get me to my feet. "Miss Sterling," she said, "thank you for your help. I can take it from here." I opened my eyes and instinctively put my arm around her neck. Scarlett stood on her toes and kissed my forehead before helping me into the car. My friend left too, leaving Chloe standing alone on the sidewalk. Her daughter was gone. Chloe fought the urge to demand answers. She went home and sat on her couch until the sun came up. She drove to my house and waited. She waited from dawn until noon, and from noon until dusk. Finally, my car appeared. I honked twice, but she didn't move. I had no choice but to get out of the car. I saw that her eyes were completely bloodshot. "What is it?" I asked. Chloe looked at me. "Your friend said yesterday that you were in a car accident, and that our daughter is gone." She paused, her voice breaking. "When? Why didn't I?" I cut her off. "It was the day I smashed your phone. The day you told me to kneel and beg Julian for forgiveness. The day I stabbed you." With every word, the color drained from her face. "Why didn't I know?" she whispered, her voice stretched thin. I looked her in the eye. "I was on the freeway. The car's electronics failed. Our daughter didn't survive. I called you. You didn't answer." I gave a bitter smile. Not that it would have mattered. Answering the phone wouldn't have saved her. It just would have been a chance to say goodbye. And maybe, for me to have someone to lean on. Her eyes were red-rimmed. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Then move your car," I said flatly. "It's my mother's birthday. I'm going to visit her grave." I turned to leave, then stopped. "Our daughter is buried there too. You can follow me if you want." Chloe followed my car in a daze. She couldn't help but wonder what our lives would have been like if none of it had ever happened. I would have been a fun father. I was romantic and knew how to enjoy life. Our daughter would have been just like me, a little angel full of life. We would have been the family everyone envied. Our daughter's grave was next to my mother's. The headstone simply read, "Daughter of Ethan Vance." I placed flowers on both graves and left a small doll for my little girl. Chloe gently touched the cold stone, a tear tracing a path down her cheek. She had wanted a family so badly, and she had destroyed it with her own 2 hands. I looked down at her hunched shoulders and sighed. Chloe, I loved you, and I hated you. But after you saved my father, I realized I don't feel anything at all anymore. Scarlett gently took my arm. I gave my daughter's grave one last look, then walked away. Chloe stayed at the cemetery until dark, completely drained. When she got home, Liam's mother, who had been waiting all day, rushed to her, tears in her eyes. Chloe, it's my fault. I failed as a mother. He made a mistake, and he deserves to be punished, but he's so young. A criminal record will ruin his life. Please, can you do something to get him out? I'm begging you. Chloe stopped the woman from kneeling. She didn't give an answer, just arranged for a car to take her home. Then, she went to the police station. She saw Julian first. That day at the beach, she asked, the watch, was it yours or Ethan's? Julian started to put on a pained expression, but Chloe cut him off, her voice weary. Think very carefully before you lie to me. I have no tolerance for liars right now. I've been through too much. I'm liable to do something crazy. Her eyes were completely dead, cold enough to kill. Julian shivered and confessed. Chloe looked at him, her gaze distant, as if she were contemplating the most painful way for him to die. But in the end, she just sighed. Why is it never enough for you people? She murmured, mostly to herself. Is it because you were given too much? Julian was too terrified to speak. There was a madness in her eyes. She didn't wait for an answer, just moved on to Liam's interrogation room. Do you have anything to say to me? Just like Julian, Liam's eyes immediately filled with tears. His performance was even more convincing. They were like 2 actors reading from the same script, and Chloe was tired of the play. I lied to you about so many things, and I'm sorry, Liam said. But when you were in the hospital, I really did take care of you. And all those years we looked out for each other, that was real, wasn't it? And haven't I repaid you enough? Chloe asked calmly. Tired of his manufactured remorse, she stood up and posted their bail. The 2 men followed her out of the station, silent and nervous, but with an undercurrent of relief. Then, with a single sentence, Chloe shattered their hopes. When you're given too much, you become greedy. Maybe losing everything will remind you of who you really are. I hear the cartels in Mexico are always looking for new recruits. I'm sending you on a little trip. Liam was terrified. Chloe, she patted his head, her voice gentle. Don't be afraid. Everyone has to pay for their mistakes. You had your fun. Now it's time to pay the price. After making the arrangements, she went home and collapsed into bed, unmoving. Late that night, a fever took hold of her, and it didn't break the next day. She fumbled for her phone, her first instinct to call me. Then, as her head cleared slightly, she scrolled past my name and called her father instead. Dad, I'm not feeling well. Can you and Mom? Her father cut her off apologetically. Chloe, honey, your mother and I are with your brother's fiancé. We're planning the wedding. What about Ethan? I know he's your ex, but after what you did for his father, surely he wouldn't just leave you in the lurch. Chloe hung up and called her assistant. She thought back to when she first returned to her family. It had been so awkward. They were strangers to each other. At first, she had been so hopeful that they could make up for lost time, but their relationship remained distant. It was only after she joined the family business and started proving her worth that her parents, whose attention had always been solely on her brother, finally started to notice her. She had used my family's power to make the Sterling Corporation a powerhouse, and that had brought her a little closer to them. All the love she had ever received had been conditional, except for mine. Chloe started to laugh, a laugh that turned into a racking cough, bringing up blood. When the fever finally broke, she threw herself back into her work with a ferocity she never had before. No one in her family knew what she was really doing. She was selling the company. She had single-handedly built the Sterling Empire. If their love was so shallow, she would simply burn it all to the ground. The day she signed the papers, Chloe came to see me one last time. She drove to my house, down the road she had driven so many times before. She hadn't appreciated it then. Now, just getting past the gate was an impossible luxury. She waited from noon until evening, until she finally saw me returning home with Scarlett. She walked up to the car and knocked on the window, her eyes on me, then on Scarlett. Could you give us half an hour alone? I nodded. Scarlett gave a gracious okay and drove the car through the gates. Chloe leaned against her car and handed me a bottle. Pomegranate, she said. I remember you were drinking this on our first date. You wore a red shirt that day too, like fire. I took the bottle, opened it, and took a sip without a word. I could tell something was different about Chloe today. She wasn't here to try and win me back. Chloe smiled at me. That day, I looked at you and thought, this man is way too eager, not composed at all. She skipped over the part about Liam. But I still had to save my family's company. I spent a whole day by the waterfront, asking myself if I could really do it, marry a man I didn't love for money. I was greedy. I wanted to save the company, but I also wanted a happy family. I kept picturing your eyes, the way they smiled. That night, I made my decision. I told myself I could learn to love you. So the next day, I called and asked you to dinner. And these last 5 years proved I was right. As much as I hated you, I fell in love with you anyway. She was quiet for a long moment before looking at me again. I think fate was kind to me. It gave me a chance at happiness. I'm the one who threw it all away. She gazed at the sunset on the horizon and fell silent. What's going on, Chloe? I finally asked. Her tone was surprisingly light. I sold the company. I wired half the money to you as repayment for what your father did for the Sterling family. With the other half, I've started a children's foundation. She handed me a folder. I want you to manage it. Will you do it? I couldn't help but ask. You sold the company, so what about you? You have all the time in the world to run a foundation. Chloe sighed. I'm tired, Ethan. So tired. I feel like I've been running for so long, just sprinting down the wrong road. I need to take a long break. I want to get away. Maybe go teach in Africa or something. I took the folder from her. I'll do it, I said quietly. I wish you all the best, Chloe. She blinked, and for a second I saw the glint of tears in her eyes. Can I have a hug? I stepped forward and put my arms around her gently. It'll all pass. Chloe closed her eyes. After a few seconds, she let go and looked at me, her expression soft. You should go in. She watched until my silhouette disappeared into the darkness, burning the image into her memory before finally getting in her car and driving away. The following week, our entire social circle was in an uproar. The mighty Sterling Corp, at the height of its power, had been sold and rebranded. And Chloe, after selling her entire stake, hadn't left a single dime for her family. I heard all sorts of rumors. That Chloe had developed a gambling addiction and was spotted in the high-stakes rooms of Monte Carlo. That she'd been swindled by a con man, seen throwing money at him in Las Vegas. That she'd joined some kind of spiritual cult and given all her money away, with sightings of her on a pilgrimage in the Himalayas. For 2 years, the rumors about Chloe would occasionally resurface. I never took part in the conversations. Another year passed. The day Scarlett gave birth to our child, I heard the news. Chloe, while teaching in Africa, had been killed by a stray bullet while shielding one of her students. After 3 years of countless rumors, this was the first one that truly affected me. I shed a single tear. After that, I never heard another word about Chloe Sterling.